O Sistema Nacional de Fomento.
The national development system between the COVID-19 crisis and the sustainable recovery. So to debate this topic, we invite Otaviano Canuto, senior member of the Brookings institution. We also have the president of Sebrae Nacional, Carlos Melles, and the director of government of Banco do Brasil, and the first vice president of ABDE, Ênio Mathias Ferreira. We have the director of risks and control of Cicobi Bank and director of Rubens, Rodrigues, Filho, and the president director of development Paraná and director of ABDE, Heraldo Neves, to moderate this conversation. We give the floor to Professor Otaviano Canuto. Welcome, Professor. Good morning once again. It is my pleasure to be a part of this forum, especially thankful for this role of moderating this topic and this panel on this very relevant topic. COVID-19 brought this natural catastrophe whose consequences have unfolded into shocks in economies and finance. It is an unprecedented crisis with impacts over financial markets, production chains, and vulnerable people. And this has added new items to the transition agendas in the country and in the world that we have just seen in the previous roundtable. Counter-cyclical nature of the development services made very clear the role of the financial institutions to help in this recovery. The national development system, which is a number of state institutions that offer long-term credit, has had a growth of 41% in its credit portfolio with micro and small companies last year, reaching 210 billion reais. The national development system also has a contribution to make in the sense that recovery should take place with the reinforcement of sustainability, inclusion, and more participation. And we have a very special group of people to address this topic. We have Carlos Melles, President of National Sebrae, Ênio Mathias Ferreira, Director of Government for Banco do Brasil and first Vice President of ABDE, Rubens Rodrigues Filho, Director of Risks and Control of Cicobi Bank, and Heraldo Neves, Director of Paraná for the ABDE. Each speaker will have 10 minutes each. And with the floor, Carlos Melles. Thank you very much, Canuto. It is my pleasure to see you once again, even though it is through Zoom, a meeting, and I would like to invite or to thank you for inviting me to this event, Rebecca Grisman and moderator Richard Martinez, Remy Rio, and our moderator Stephanie Griffith Jones. I'd like to greet all of the friends that will converse in this round table. Sebrae is very honored to be a part of this debate and happy to make a contribution on the topic of development banks. We have the honor to be a part of of having the ABDE in the deliberation board of Sebrae, and Sergio has participated in giving brilliant contributions with us. So unfortunately, a pandemic is like a war, and wars, just as the pandemic is, they show where our limits lie, and they expand the limits as well. So you can foster gains on one side and bring misery on other sides of life. So last week I had a meeting with Minister Paulo Guedes and President Bolsonaro, and we said that, well, tax collection is increasing, but misery or poverty is also increasing. So we are moving away from equality. We are actually accessing worsening the inequalities. And the role of Sebrae in this moment, well, that has always been the role of Sebrae, is to give support to the 7 million SMEs that we have in Brazil, and individual micro entrepreneurs. Our country is very enthusiastic about entrepreneurship. Well, that doesn't mean we are good managers. The dream of being an entrepreneur alone is necessary, but it's not sufficient. So Sebrae in this crisis has placed itself as it should. Well, we are here side by side with you, and Vida is Marco Zero, and the projects aimed at protecting the employment, because micro and small companies in Brazil, they employ most of the people in Brazil, 75% of employments.
30%, we account for 30% of the national GDP, and also, well, the government played its role relatively well. The measures taken by the government, not only in terms of the emergency support, as well as the more flexible rules for employment, and Pronambi, the financing for micro and small companies. And also, I'd like to point out, since this is a clear reality for us, the role that Sérgio Guzmão has played in the BDMG. It's a new development bank of Minas Gerais, and also the Roberto Campos Neto, president of governor of the Central Bank of Brazil, also demonstrating the more flexible rules for access to credit. So Sebrae, the Sebrae that Brazil needs, we are at your side, and what we seek is, first, digitalize as much as possible, associating ourselves to major platforms and marketplaces, using all the necessary tools, entering partnerships with Facebook, with WhatsApp, bringing as much as possible, as much complementarity as possible, and facilitating digital access. We also have, always in partnership with governments, been trying to implement or show that Sebrae is supporting implementation of several programs very dynamically, in a very dynamic role, not only in fostering credit, but also entrepreneurial education. So the biggest challenge that we face now is to support. We have been conducting several surveys and research with Getúlio Vargas Foundation, Tom Cabral Foundation, and others. We've been conducting an analysis of the needs of micro and small companies. And so we'd like to bring here to this event, and we spoke with the president last week. There was an unfortunate issue regarding the budget. The non-sanctioning of the budget has actually limited the support. The situation was bad in 2020, but 2021 will be worse. And so January, February, March, and until now, April, we haven't had, apart from the emergency support, we are actually struggling with several issues, as the income revenue has decreased 40% without working capital, and a situation that is quite severe. We are studying with the government not only the Pronami measures and also the provisional measure, and we are also, based on the revenue of micro and small companies, we are studying a relaxing of payment. Minister Paulo Guedes mentioned 6 months for some sectors. We are improving this together with the Ministry of the Economy, with Secretary Saxida and Sebrae, to issue an emergency measure to aid, to help micro and small companies. It's important to say that last year, Brazil broke the record of fostering of micro companies, thanks to development banks, Banco do Brasil, Caixa Econômica, and other banks. But that's still we need to invest more in the sector of micro and small companies in order to help them promote, play their role in promoting development in the country. So I'm happy to participate in the debate and consolidate certain positions. Thank you, Canuto. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you for bringing such substantive comments in such a short time. I'd like to invite Ênio now. Ênio. Thank you, Professor Canuto. Good morning to all of you who are watching us. I'd like to greet the participants of this panel, President Carlos Melles from Sebrae, my friend Rubens from Bancoob, who also, and also Janete. Is Janete participating? I don't think so.
Participando, eu aqui da Fomento Paraná tenho essa incumbência.
From Fomento Paraná, I am trying to replace her absence. It's good to see you. It's a pleasure to participate in this event. And initially, I'd like to congratulate ABDE, represented by President Sérgio Guzmão, for holding this development forum aimed at looking for paths and discussing Brazilian development. We are in a world in transition, and the pandemic has actually accelerated changes in society, bringing huge challenges for the whole world. And in tackling such challenges, it is more evident that we need to make efforts towards new solutions, and the productive system needs our support in order to resume its activities gradually and as quickly as possible. In this context, the national system of development is active, working with governments at the federal, state, and municipal levels to implement public policies that will allow resumption of economic activities. At Bank of Brazil, our purpose is to look after what is most valuable for people, and we have adopted several measures and used several measures to fight the effects of the pandemic. And I would like to share some of these actions that have been adopted, and so I will quickly share some slides with you. So, of the actions implemented by the bank, I'd like to highlight first the support to public policies. Bank of Brazil has been working in partnership, especially with the Ministry of the Economy and Ministry of Citizenry, and Sebrae has been a major partner. We've been talking a lot with President Mendes. And so I'd like to highlight the emergency support. Bank of Brazil has directly made available 11.7 billion reais in credit, with 9.5 million in credit. And another is the emergency grant proposed by the federal government. Bank of Brazil is a financial agent in the operation of this program, and making available credit, and more than 16.4 billion reais have already been paid very quickly in an agile manner, in partnership with Febraban, benefiting more than 20 million people. And also, another very important program that Bank of Brazil was operating institution was the Brasil Conta Comigo, Brazil count on me, together with the Ministry of Health, paying 491,000 bonuses to health professionals in the front line, amounting to 336 million reais in a very transparent and agile manner. In employment generation, as President Carlos Mendes mentioned, we know that small and micro and small companies, and they are responsible to approximately 30% of the country's wealth. We have the PRONAMP program, a major challenge, bringing a lot of benefit to society, where Bank of Brazil had the opportunity to be the financial agent for this program. First, making payments and direct operations to clients, micro and small companies. So until now, 7 billion reais in disbursements, totaling 112,000 operations. And Bank of Brazil, in the role of financial agent, as a guaranteeing fund, it has managed 38 billion reais used as guarantee with any financial institution joining the program, and over 500,000 operations. And in the PEAC Maquininhas, another program by the federal government in partnership with BNDES, Bank of Brazil disbursed 2.2 billion reais, contemplating 76,000 customers, totaling 71% of the total program. When we observe these challenges, we see that several digital mechanisms have been deployed to meet the needs of the population, especially so that citizens don't have to leave their homes. And so solutions were created specifically for this situation. We contributed with the payment of the staff working during the election. So over 1 million in payments were made without a need for these electorals to leave home and go to the bank. And this was done in a very transparent and agile manner. And regarding the telephone central, which was created to cater to beneficiaries of this program with 1.9 million calls, and also 32 billion reais were disbursed in digital operation authorizations, and payments were made directly to current accounts identified by the beneficiaries. And in terms of emergency support, partnerships with states and municipalities were entered. 96,000 beneficiaries of these partnerships received payment, and we quickly created digital channels through WhatsApp and chat, contemplating 21,000 calls a day, which is key to benefiting this population. And also the proof of life, which is a necessary condition for pensioners. We quickly created a solution and implemented facial biometrics and also fingerprint identification, and several functionalities that we quickly implemented, benefiting 520,000 people, so that these pensioners would not need to go to physical branches of Bank of Brazil in order to provide proof of life for pension purposes. And here we have some of the direct actions: donation to Fiocruz, both by Bank of Brazil and partner institutions. The Bank of Brazil Foundation has been strongly working to raise resources and making direct donations to partner institutions, nonprofit institutions. And so we created the coronavirus website to raise funds and to give to the population the necessary information for the purpose of rendering of accounts. Also, import funding and donation for purchase of food and cleaning and hygiene products were also made. In terms of, well, here a highlight from the Bank of Brazil Foundation, with the implementation of a program to purchase food from the Green Belt with great results. The foundation, through the funds raised, is purchasing production from the Green Belt and donating to the people in greatest need.
This is for credit operations as well. Different credit lines were put available. We have changed the processes to make it more agile, and we started the program Municipal Efficiency. We dedicated 3 billion reais, expanding the target public from 500 to 3,000 municipalities, and also collecting direct resources for health and food. So different actions that were implemented in Banco do Brasil. Just to mention a few examples, the purpose is to combat the effects of the pandemic, and this really shows the compromise, the commitment of our institution with productive efforts and the sustainability of the economy. We know how important the national development system is in terms of supporting citizens and companies. I believe that the joining of our efforts with all of our participants and institutions, we can together contribute even further for the recovery of the economy and also solving the social issues of the Brazilian population. We know that together we are strong and we can do much more. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Ênio. Now we give the floor to Rubens. Thank you, Otaviano. I'd like to greet everyone watching. Ênio, Carlos, Heraldo, Otaviano. The importance of the participation of our President Sérgio, Gustavo Montezano. They brought very important information on the pillars of the BNDES. Remy and Stephanie as well. Thank you very much, Ênio, Carlos, for the actions you took so far. I will take my time to speak as a representative of financial cooperativism within the national development system. I'm a participant of the ABDE, and I'll present some information about our system, which is a cooperative financial system. The central bank calls it a national system of cooperative credit. I will share some slides regarding the topic to give you an idea of how we are organized within the national financial system and within the national development system. You may know that within the national development systems, among the members of the ABDE, we have the cooperative systems, Sicobi, which I represent, Sicredi, Cressol. These are the three important cooperative systems. We are actually 9. In addition to these 3, we have Unicred as a participant of the 3rd level systems. They are banks and confederations. We have some on the central level, second level Ilus, Uniprime, Credis, Cres, and Secopi, and some cooperatives that are not members yet. Global numbers of this system. We are 9 organized cooperative systems, 847 cooperatives
Os estados brasileiros, 2 bancos cooperativos
spread out
entre aquele
all over
sistema
Brazil, 2 cooperative banks.
Sicredi,
So we have Sicredi Bank and Sicob. These are 2 banks.
milhões cooperados,
12.7 million cooperative members of 6,480 agencies, 2,787 municipalities serviced, 234 of which have exclusive service made by cooperatives.
19
We have
depósitos,
here the figures for our assets, credit operations, deposits, and liquid assets. We are talking about the global numbers of the national cooperative credit system, composed of all of those I presented in the previous slide. So we have the big numbers here. We had in the last 5 years an evolution, a significant evolution in terms of credit operations
20%,
in the order of 20% growth. And the average of the financial system
em ativos crescemos
growth
20%.
was 4.1. In assets, we've grown 20%, and the average was 6.7. In total deposits, 22% against 14 in the financial system, and liquid assets of 12%. These are all figures taken from the central bank. EF data is a database on financial information, and these are information used by the president of Central Bank, Roberto Campos Neto, last week to present on the launching of the institutional agenda of cooperative actions in Brazil. In Sicob, which is one of the systems, we had the growth in the we had a growth in the average. We have almost 100 billion reais in credit operations, 160 billion in total assets.
Qual é o nosso posicionamento no ranking?
So what is our position in the ranking of the national financial system? Sicob
Aparece como a 7ª instituição do sistema financeiro em operações de crédito.
in terms of credit operation, 8th on total assets, 7th in liquid assets, 6th in total deposits, and the 2nd in the number of service points, second only to Banco do Brasil. This participation in ranking, we know that there is a huge concentration.
Ou maiores instituições
The 5 main institutions are holding 80% the operation.
A 6ª, 7ª, 8ª instituição,
being the 6th or 7th and 8th institutions in the financial system at large, means to
em torno de 20%.
have a share of 20%. In terms of market share, 5.5% in the national cooperative credit system. So 5% are in the credit operations, 5.5% for total assets, 7.5% for net equity, and 5.6% in deposits, and 25% in service points. We have the strategy of expanding these service points. We aim to connect people in order to bring financial justice and prosperity. And we have a very vast territory to occupy in Brazil, providing direct service to our communities. As Ênio informed, we all are part of the emergency programs released by the government, PESI, PRONAMP, PEAC, Sebrae, CGPE. We have invested 5.5 billion in the first trust of this, in the first front of these emergency programs. We are now in the second line. And in addition, we have released with our own resources around 1 billion reais to take care of emergency issues regarding the members of the cooperatives, the credit cooperatives in Cicobi. Regarding sustainability, the Cicobi Institute has released the impact report in 2020, a few days ago. And in that report, we list a few pieces of information regarding our participation in the sustainability agenda, social and environmental topics. I should highlight in this list the activity of the credit cooperative system regarding financial education. We have a sustainability agenda by the central bank, and in addition to the ABC hashtag, we have inclusion and education. These are all very important parts of the credit cooperative system action. So a very significant number of people were reached in the ENF week, which is the week of financial education. And we are very proud to be an active part of this. Financial inclusion and financial education and support to the development of the communities is the essence of cooperative efforts. Some examples of what we do face-to-face in the national territory. We take educational programs to people, financial education, financial clinics, and should also highlight our participation in international terms with the International Confederation of Popular Banks, headquartered in Brussels, in Belgium. And in May, next month, Brazil will take office as the chair country of this institution. These are 9 countries: Bank, Desjardins in Belgium, German, Argentina, Cicobi here in Brazil. Cicobi will be the president, the chair institution starting next year, in programs like this, which we are presenting here, provide effective support to inclusion, to financial inclusion and education. These are shared by all of these institutions in the countries, and we're very proud to be a part of this. In our sustainability pillar of the BC hashtag agenda, I should highlight the recent initiatives of central bank regarding the policies of social, environmental, and climate responsibility. So the cooperative systems have as principle to act close to society. So inclusion, education, and also the protection of the environment, while respecting very strongly what our regulations define and the policies which are requested by our regulator, the central bank. So I should close by saying that the Cicobi system works with 3 purposes, 3 main objectives in its agenda, very much focused on the sanitation emergence, and also while observing, or actually the health emergencies. The health emergencies of a very severe and cruel component, at the same time as it allows us to work towards responsibility, labor policies, and many other points. With that, we act in 3 main purposes: to support people, especially in the micro and small companies, and the communities that are in contingency situations, through products and services that support the sustainable resolution of financial problems. Secondly, to act with micro and small companies and communities in the reviewing and adjusting of processes in financial inclusion and education, and entrepreneurship and cooperative efforts. I believe that this point is very much in line with one of the pillars presented by President Gustavo Montezano, which is the pillar of the project factory. Projects that bring forth intelligence and effective actions to support the reviewing of operational processes of companies and communities. And lastly, as the third point, to prepare the institutions of the SICOB system for the opportunities brought about by the current moment. Open banks, digital transformation, all these elements promoting major transformations in the social, economic, financial relations, always having as steering wheel the sustainable development. That was it for my part. From my part, Otaviano. Thank you. Thank you, Rubens. Now we'll hear from Heraldo.
Thank you, Professor. Good morning to all of you. I'd like to greet our professor and a reference to us Brazilians, Professor Otaviano Canuto, the moderator of our roundtable. I'd also like to greet President of Sebrae Nacional, President Carlos Melles, highlighting the importance of Sebrae, especially in maintaining and expanding business, and also in the pandemic, an institution that I was privileged to serve as a member representing ABDE in the Fiscal Council, the Fiscal Board, also greet my peers, Rodrigues from SICOB, Ênio, Ferreira, and I'd like to greet President Sérgio Guzmão and all the panelists and lecturers in this important forum. I'm going to share a presentation, if you can please. Yes. So I'm going to talk about the Fomento Paraná case and our contribution during the pandemic. Fomento Paraná is a financial institution, part of the national development system, and it has celebrated its 21st anniversary. And along the 21 years, the biggest challenge has been to help alleviate the effects of the pandemic on economic activity. We celebrated our 21st anniversary in November, and as other partners in the system, our mission is to contribute towards sustainable economic development. Now, providing some context, Fomento Paraná operates with its own resources and intermediate resources, and managing important funds for the maintenance of our productive base in Paraná. We manage the Economic Development Fund, important in development of infrastructure and in sectors such as the industrial sector of Paraná. It helped a lot in the distribution of industrial cities. It is a credit equalizing instrument, and also we manage the Rural Guarantee Fund to make credit lines compatible. We also have the PPPs, the Public-Private Partnership Guaranteeing Fund, and the Guaranteeing Fund, the FAG. One of the consequences of the program, part of a program with a lot of contribution from Sebrae Paraná, and we also participated in the operations of Banestado. And also two fronts, we have two fronts, financing the municipal governments, that is our main portfolio, basically taking financing for pavements and machines and equipment, construction of public facilities and equipment, utilities in general. We also have a more recent operation and prioritization of the private sector, providing around 12 million in credit to the private sector, including microcredit and more structured lines. The last one was made available for the tourist sector. Our operation base is fundamentally based on partnerships with a public partnership with urban secretariats. Paraná Cidades is an important organization in structuring investment and infrastructure projects. And in the private sector, we basically have partnerships with municipal governments in the state. With 399 municipalities, we are present in more than 240 municipalities and a network of almost 300 credit agents available. And we also rely on partnerships with correspondents, especially for actions intermediated by the industrial and commercial associations in Paraná. Now, on a quick context of our actions in the pandemic. We have a program catering to municipalities and companies in a situation of calamity, and since April, with the issuing of Law Paraná Recupera, we have been able, without too much red tape, to offer suspending of loan payment and financing payment. And so it's a law that allows Fomento Paraná to act quickly and permanently in situations of calamity such as the one we are experiencing now. And so basically our action regarding the pandemic was to suspend or postpone all payments from all our clients. In the beginning of the pandemic, we had 16,000 active clients. And so the first initiative was to make available to our public the possibility of suspending and renegotiating loan operations or funding operations with Fomento Paraná. We estimated last year, involving also new credit lines and conditions in terms of deadlines and interest rates, around 540 million guys, and to allow for the postponing of it and also reformed credit lines in terms of interest and deadlines and new lines made available to address the effects of the pandemic. And focusing on micro and informal companies, we had additional funds from the Treasury of the state of Paraná, also thanks to fiscal efforts, and we have actually raised resources together with BNDES. And so the source of resources are stated here on the slide. And what do we offer to the private sector? From the beginning of the pandemic, as I already mentioned, suspension of payments, amortization of loans, and initially we offered suspension of payment from April to August 2020 with the possibility of renegotiation and postponing payment and up to 24 months, depending on the sources of these lines. Our main portfolio that we have with the municipalities we also offered suspension of payment of installments for 180 days up to December last year initially. Thanks to complementary law 173 of 2020 from the federal government, in addition to suspending the charging of credit reserve rates. Also, basically, credit lines for the private sector. We offer, on the request of our governor, targeting especially micro and small entrepreneurs, micro companies. These are the main focus. Informal entrepreneurs, 1,500, and with BRDE, we have well, why did we establish this limit? We have limits with our main partners, BNDES especially, but also BRDE. Our expectation was to dilute as much as possible the availability of resources in order to address the lines. And so we offer facilitated lines in terms of interest and deadlines. And so in terms of interest rates for lines up to 6,000, we defined a TJLP for the credit operations and a grace period of 12 months. And that's for micro and small companies, especially informal ones. And so employment maintenance credit lines from 6,000 to 20,000 reais. These are lines that we actually reformed their conditions in terms of interest rates. Now, quickly, the beginning of the pandemic. In March, we launched an economic measure package. We made our platform available on the 27th of March. In the initial week, we had more than 15,000 credit requests on our platform. And there was the sanctioning of the Paraná Recupera law, allowing us to offer suspension of payment of installments, and we also approved the normative framework. We prioritized, as I said, informal and small entrepreneurs with credit lines of up to 6,000 and later with higher amounts. At the end of beginning of May, we began with the FAG fund to guarantee the operations of Fungetur. Fungetur does not allow, well, the Ministry of Tourism does not allow the FAG guarantee as a guarantee instrument. So we have put in place this mechanism for the tourism sector. We purchased new quotas from the BNDES-FGI. We integrated our platform with that of the Trade Board. And we have started a line dedicated to the transport sector, including vans involved in school transportation and tourist transportation. And so we provided this line in order to alleviate the effects of the pandemic on these activities. We signed agreements with Fomento and Sebrae, and in September we finalized this line of up to 6,000 reais. Regarding our agenda in catering to all the credit requests, we had to adapt. And so the law that allowed the possibility of processing of micro credits, adapting, and actually we started the operation of our platform to process credit requests in a fully digital manner, and we did this in a very short time. Since our action is mostly carried out in partnerships, as all economic activities, our partners also were practicing social distancing, and so we raised awareness of our partners, and so that help us in registration and processing.
Likewise, we had to conduct a huge internal movement to readaptation of our personnel to personalize the credit operations, and totaling 61,000 credit requests received last year. We managed to process around 30,000 of the contracts, and that was a financial dimension of 30 million reais, summing to public sector operations. We closed last year with almost 600 million in new operations in Fomento Paraná. Unfortunately, we had to refuse by different reasons, but mostly enrollment problems and problems with the central bank, around 31,500 proposals. And new credit operations, plus our work in retaining resources, about 800 million reais that we managed to maintain in our economy. For our dimension, this is an extraordinary volume of resources that we managed to allocate in the state of Paraná. So this is what I had to present to you. Thank you very much, President Sérgio, for the opportunity of having us, for the opportunity for us to present to you. Thank you. Thank you, Heraldo, and thanks to the other speakers for the excellent presentations. COVID-19 crisis has struck our region, at least last year, more intensely than in other places of the world. Something that really called the attention was the fact that Brazil, in the first half of the year, the projections of what would take place in our country were terrible. I live in Washington, but follow very closely the work in the institutions, IMF and World Bank, where I worked for over 15 years. So the perspectives of the evolution of the Brazilian GDP last year, the first half of the year, were -9%, -8% GDP drop. However, differently from other countries in the region, we ended up having a 4.1% decrease in the GDP, which really surprised those who were expecting, as I said, in these institutions, more accentuated recession. And the core explanation for this positive surprise has been the response in terms of policies for flattening the recession in the financial side. Of course, within the fiscal space limitations, the country is mandated to operate for some time. This is what we managed even then to provide a fiscal and financial response. Part of the explanation for this puzzle, this enigma, was made clear in the 4 presentations we had. The responses in terms of provisions and actions to mitigate the effects of the crisis. And I want to highlight the complementarity. Really, it really shows the synergy of the different actions, Sebrae, in terms of supporting digitization and the operation of the credit lines in Banco do Brasil. Also very important to highlight the interaction and cooperation of Fomento Paraná with BRE and BNDES, as well as it's mentioned by Rubens. This is a characteristic which favors us, which is the capillarity of the banks. And what Rubens mentioned in terms of cooperative action, this makes a very big difference in our country when compared to many others in which I've worked over the last 15 years. This is something to be really complemented and conserved and protected and expanded. And I'd like to call the attention to the fact that this anti-crisis support took place with a direction of inclusion, financial education, and sustainability. We are quite short on time, but I would like you, on your final remarks, I'd like for you to talk about 2 main things, given our time constraints. In the first place, the analysts have been observing a growing digitization of productive processes as some sort of scarring effect of COVID-19. This is what I've seen due to the risks that the curve of digitization will put forth, not only in terms of concentration of market structures, but also due to an exclusion of those who are not qualified to follow the changes, follow the pace of the changes. And that's why I assumed from Carlos' address a very interesting approach of using digitization as an opportunity, given the productivity potential and the work in coordination with the digital solutions of Banco do Brasil, and with the support and extension of Cicobi and Fomento Paraná and other systems. This also provides an opportunity of making an opportunity of increasing productivity out of this scarring effect, of improving the effectiveness of small and medium-sized enterprises. And I'd like you to mention this, digitization and financial education. And the second point, if it's possible, I'd like to hear from you. Well, Carlos made a call for action and a very profound observation on the relevance of trying to expand programs like the emergency benefit aid programs, the renewal of the emergency aid program. We need to expand the other measures to support companies that were underlying to the catastrophic response of the Brazilian economy to the crisis. The number of bankruptcies and defaults have shown to be much less dramatic than what was expected in the beginning of last year. So I'd like to hear from you different proposals. Of course, we are in a political process that is complicated, but we'll have to address the solution to these problems. So I'd like for you to mention these topics on your final remarks, and I would like to hear your opinions in these matters. Thank you very much for your presentations. They were very complimentary and full of important content. Let's follow the same order. Good to hear from you. You're very wise and sound in your remarks. I would like to thank Rubens, Ênio, Heraldo, for this partnership, and we were very synergistic in our discourse, and I believe that the resulting vector is a positive one. So I also thought that we would have a worse results in terms of financial and economic results. So Brazil, with the aid programs, ended up supporting the ground level. The research has shown that the construction sector, pet shops, some sectors have grown, especially with innovation. But underlying everything that you said, we can see that there's no other choice but to become digital. And we have adopted exiting protocols and everything we could. Even with guided credit, digitization came to stay because we have managed to reduce the risk of credit. And our partners know that. We ended up almost like tutoring planning actions, and those credit requests that were forwarded with analysis from Sebrae, we had an acceptance rate of 1 to 5, 1 to 4. We accepted many more products projects when they had a reasonability in their justification. So becoming digital is no longer a matter of yes or no. We have to, and last year came up with a network that Sebrae, that the Brazil needed. So what Brazil needs is for us to take care of the digital aspects with or without a pandemic. So this aspect came to stay. We have usage of WhatsApp and other platforms, the insertion of major platforms as we did with Magazine Luiza company. We are studying others like Amazon and free market, Mercado Livre. So you managed to include small and medium-sized enterprises in a very quick and effective manner. And this gives us an edge. And digitization has also allowed for a stronger adaptation of SMEs in products, in terms of products, processes, and interactivity with customers, customer fidelity. So this was a magical aspect in this sense, and the people had in their hands what everybody else does, smartphones and apps. So given all of that, we know that the government has no energy, and given the fiscal ceiling to repeat what we managed to do good in terms of the government, you can imagine that the benefit. The aid program started with 200 reais. We elevated it to 600 in the National Congress. And there are two good things that we are assessing in terms of metrics. We can measure, and research has shown that in the end of May, we'll have every Brazilian above 60 years of age, and the service sectors, especially health sector, vaccinated already. So at the end of June, everybody above 40 years of age. So vaccination is the best way out. It's the best antidote for employment, fiscal, everything else. Vaccination is the way to go. And we are having this perspective of having a recovery in October, a very substantial recovery, which will alleviate a lot the problems we are now facing. And Sebrae is working and offering this measurement as we advance in vaccination, we advance in fiscal aspects, especially for SMEs, which is healthy for the economy at large. So there is no evil that lasts forever, and there is no good that lasts forever. So we are talking to our partners, we are working with the team, and what we expect is that from August onwards, we'll probably have a lifting of the barriers to economy, and we will be able to grow again in the next semester, which was what China demonstrated. We've heard figures like 23% growth. It may well be that we have this good news in Brazil.
But I'd like to greet Sérgio Gourmão and all the organizers of this seminar, which is so important. And Sebrae, together with ABDE, we are on the same team. I would like this to be reflected in a booklet that would give us all the opportunity electronically and materially to have such a booklet. And so greetings to you all. Thank you. Thank you, Carlos. Ênio, please. Thank you, Professor. I will be really quick because of time constraints. Regarding the first question, the proposal on digitalization, increasing digitalization, it is a reality. We observe that the customer satisfaction is much greater when it involves digitalized processes, especially compared to other processes. There is a huge demand for processes that are not yet fully digital to be improved. And we've been conducting constant surveys with on client satisfaction, customer satisfaction, and other surveys. And just to give you an idea, in terms of transactions, the bank today, 46%, well, actually 86% of transactions are carried out fully digitally. In terms of new digital customers, growth last year was of 78%. These are digital natives. More than 5 million clients, bank customers, were born fully digital. They are digital natives. And so we do need to digitalize increasingly. And the challenge is to adapt customers' needs to the moment. They want everything digital, but of course there are clients, customers that don't have these skills, and we need to respect them and allow them to do transactions safely. PIX has been highlighting and reaffirming this environment. So we do need to move forward, catering to our customers' needs. On the second topic, extending programs and public policies, Bank of Brazil is entirely on board, especially PRONAMP. We have participating directly with the federal government. President Carlos Mendes has also participated in these discussions, the National Congress as well, and the role of the bank as a financial agent is to support, to ensure agility and modern solutions and managing resources in a way that the whole of Brazilian society can benefit. And so our role, well, all these actions have been prioritized and technology fully geared to these programs, and we are supporting unconditionally all the decisions in this area. And so I'd like to thank the opportunity to participate, and Bank of Brazil's contribution is entirely at service, and I'd like to greet again all the participants and audience. Special greetings to our President Guzmão and the whole ABDE team. Fantastic organization. Thank you very much, and congratulations to you all. Professor, it's been a pleasure to participate with you. Thank you, Ênio. Rubens. Thank you, Professor. Well, the first point regarding digitalization. For me, digitalization is a solution, not a problem. Digitalization is necessary. It supports social inclusion and financial education. We experience this every day in cooperativism. We reach millions of people with educational programs thanks to digitalization. As Ênio said, today almost 90% of financial transactions in banks are conducted through digital means, and any child today knows how to use digital means, and through well-developed programs, we will reach the whole population. This will bring about progress and productivity. As to emergency support programs, one of the goals on our SICOBE agenda is support in contingency situations. We are experiencing this currently, but I am a risk manager, and as such, I need to be optimistic but cautious. I know we have problems regarding macroeconomic issues, and we will have problems with default in the future, but I don't believe in a lost decade. I believe in a gained decade. I'm sure that these two components, the benefits that this whole situation has anticipated and that we didn't explore previously, together with the central bank actions in modernizing the system and making it more competitive, I am sure we will make the next decade a gained decade rather than a lost decade. Thank you. Thank you, Rubens. Heraldo. Thank you, Professor. Regarding the first topic, digitalization, it's always been on the plans of Fomento Paraná to work digitally as much as possible in a digital environment. But then the pandemic came, bringing with it the need to process credit operations without any physical contact. No doubt this has accelerated what was perhaps a distant target here for our company. Fomento Paraná has an extraordinary network with more than 250 points of contact, and we had a mix of credit with hybrid credit operations. And we had our technology analysts and internal users together developing this. It was a necessity. And I would say that, as suggested by the other panelists, this has been an extraordinary gain during the pandemic, which will remain as a key legacy. After the pandemic, we need to go back to working on our technologies, and until a short while ago, 5 years ago, in the state of Paraná, we didn't have microcredit as a product offered by other institutions, including cooperatives. So more than agility, more than response, we need to process and deliver quickly credit lines, and we need to evolve and develop digital platforms. Given competition from fintechs and cooperatives and so on, regarding the second point, the state of Paraná has been promoting important investments. We will now, in 2022, have a new process of highway concession, which will require a lot of investment and modernization of our road network. We have been investing heavily in railway, linking Paraná with the center west and our ports, and other important construction works in our two ports. Perhaps a third port will be built here in Paraná. And Fomento Paraná is fully participating in these initiatives in response to the pandemic, and also as part of what we are fully participating, and we will provide resources for investment and expansion of the productive base of our state. Tomorrow we will launch a program called Agriculturers Bank to help develop small family cooperatives and associations of producers, a program dedicated especially to the family farmers, offering funds and subvention for credit for interest rates, also offering agricultural credit as a part of the agricultural credit. And Fomento Paraná, obviously, Paraná has a very important agricultural base, and we want to start working with this segment as well, offering credit and conditions that our farmers require. So basically, this is what I'd like to answer, Professor Canuto. Thank you once again for the opportunity, and President Sérgio Guzmão also. Thank you for the opportunity to tell you about our actions here in our state. Thank you. Thank you. And good news with this good news from Fomento Paraná. So I found all the presentations and answers excellent. And before ending this panel, I'd like to congratulate the organizers. The forum is very well structured with really good people and important topics to be discussed. And I also would like to congratulate Sérgio for the work with the two hats, as he mentioned in the previous session, ABDE and the Development Bank of Minas Gerais. Sérgio thinks in terms of additionality, and this is a very and complementarity which is present in any development system such as the one we are discussing today. Thank you very much.